Is your needle addiction as good for you, for your health, as it is for mine? Can you de-stress, relax, build self-esteem, and have increased positive feelings? My needle addiction led me to hooking. I've been addicted to hooking for years and it just doesn't seem to be letting up. What I'm talking about here is crocheting. Crochet is French for hook, which is a form of a needle with a hook on the end of it. And I've been crocheting for 53 years, and it was taught to me by my grandmother. My good friend Nancy Hahn, with 43 years of crocheting, says it keeps her from overeating by keeping her hands busy. She was taught by her mother, who was taught by her mother. According to Craft Yarn Council, there are over 50 million people of all ages who knit, crochet, and craft with yarn. It was very likely that you may know someone who uses yarn to craft. With little history, crocheting is a method of weaving, sewing that has few tools and can produce an array of items, as well as being a stress reliever that a person can take wherever they may go. Let me introduce you to some of the story behind the hook. Knitting, crocheting, and other yarn techniques are ancient, everyday crafts that rarely made it into the history books. In Gwen Morgan's book, Traditional Knitting, she found that the earliest knitting was brought from Egypt to the European countries around 400 AD. It was also suggested that the Arabs around 8th century were also contributors to this form of sewing. This craft was not written down and was taught from person to person. Now binding, netting, and knitting are all ancient and Middle Age handcrafts taught by the elders. In the Middle Ages, the men were the ones to have an apprenticeship for 6 years to become a master knitter, for which they were tested. There was also now binding and netting, which was also done by the men. After the Industrial Revolution, around 1760 to 1830, most knitting was done by machines. And it wasn't until the Irish famine around 1845 to 1852 that the women were knitting, and that's when crocheting gained its notoriety for extra income for the family. While each item I have talked about is mostly passed on from generation to generation, they all use needles. And the needles are tools that are varying in size and shape, and by using different techniques, produce everyday items. The Good Housekeeping New Complete Book of Needlecraft, compiled by Vera Guild, has several picture examples of the tools or needles, along with my own examples of each craft that I'll be talking about. Now binding is a weaving which uses a bone needle, while netting uses a shuttle to make fishing nets. And I have a picture of both. This is a bone needle, and it has a hole right here for the thread to go through. And that was like basket weaving or things like that. This is a picture of a shuttle, and the thread is in the middle right here. And that's for net making. And I have my own bone needle that I made. And here is it. It's made actually out of a bone with a hole in it for the thread to go through. There's also knitting, and knitting uses 2 to 4 needles, and this is knitting needles where you pass the yarn from one needle to the other, and it makes socks and hats and whatever you want to make out of your yarn. And then we have crocheting, and like I said, crocheting is a needle with a hook on the end of it, and there are I have different sizes here. And with crocheting, you can use, this is a doily. This is a hat I made. You can also make afghans, lap quilts, or anything you want to make out of your yarn. Also with crocheting, I made this basket. Instead of yarn, I used material, and you just used the bigger hook. The benefits of needlecraft can make for a healthier life. And we have I lost my place, hon. According to staff writer Catherine Versillo of Roday News website, she mentions 5 common symptoms of health benefits from crochet. It's a natural way to ease mental and physical health symptoms, and it eases the effects of depression by breaking ruminating thought processes. Crochet gets your mind off the physical pain, providing a positive distraction while releasing serotonin, which is a natural painkiller. Insomnia sufferers will have something to do late at night while helping producing a soothing feeling of rest. Anxiety and grief are also helped with crocheting with a focus on something else besides what might worry a person. Stephanie Watson of Harvard Health Productions from Harvard University, she writes that adults over 50 who volunteered on a regular basis were less likely to develop high blood pressure than non-volunteer people. Volunteering may contribute to lower blood pressure, as I had just mentioned, due to physical activity of getting out, reducing stress. Volunteering helps with serving others, which makes a person feel better about themselves. Socialization keeps a person connected, less lonely, less depressed, and also gives them accomplishment of making something for someone in need. While the ancient history of working with yarn was mostly men, women today tend to be the ones to do the knitting and crocheting. With the stress of today's society, crochet is a stress reliever, a friendship maker, and a volunteer charity worker. My hooking is an addiction that gave me a chance to unwind, revive, and have a sense of accomplishment that makes a difference. Maybe the next time you see someone's handmade craft, you'll understand the addiction they had with their needles and the difference they made in someone else's life. Thank you.